Hello and welcome. My name is Benji Hansen Bundy. I'm the deputy editor at A.Team, and I'm super excited to welcome you to our panel on the secret to sourcing AI talent. A quick note about A.Team. A.Team is a platform that uses AI to bring together Ocean's 11 style teams of product builders to build transformative technology. We combine McKinsey style strategy with Silicon Valley execution, working with everyone from hot AI startups like Inflection AI to Fortune 500 companies like Pepsi. If you want to check us out, there's some tabs at the top of your screen. A little bit of housekeeping. Please keep any questions you have in the Q&A tab. The chat will also be live and popping off. We'll answer questions throughout this discussion, bringing them up on screen. And keep an eye out for live polls, audience polls, so that we'll have some data to work with. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge the tremendous suffering that's going on in the world at this moment. It feels weird to be enthusiastically talking about AI when there's so much going on impacting people in our community. And at the same time, it also feels appropriate in the sense that we're all here to build. And the only thing that I can think to do right now is to build. So to set the table for this discussion, let me just say this. It's hard to find AI talent. Job posts mentioning generative AI have increased over 3,000% since January. Netflix made headline posting an AI job paying $900,000 a year. Demand has clearly outstripped supply. So when it comes to sourcing AI talent, companies have three main options: build, buy, and rent. They can upskill current employees. We call that building. They can hire from the outside. That's sort of like buying, or they can engage a talent partner on a contract basis, renting. So every talent strategy should include all three. But this webinar is focused on the third option, renting, bringing in fractional talent to jumpstart an AI initiative. Let me introduce our panelists. First up, Nicole Hedley. She's the founder of Built Ahead and a member of the A.Team AI Guild. She specializes in product engineering and AI product architecture and development. She's hired and led engineering orgs of 50 and still actively codes, working on products from startups and public companies. Halit Erdogan is the founder and CEO at NeuralBridge, where he works with startups and enterprises to productize generative AI for real business outcomes. Previously, he was an AI lead at Google for more than 10 years, and he's an A-Team CXO. Dr. Eric Solomon got his PhD in cognitive psychology with a focus on AI and ML, and has held marketing leadership positions for some of the top brands in the world, including YouTube, Spotify, Google, Instagram. He was chief marketing officer at Bonobos, which I'm wearing Bonobos pants right now. He currently serves as the founder and CEO of the Human OS, which is a strategy advisory platform that he built from the ground up. He's also an A-Team CXO. I want to start with the poll for the audience. Does your company have the talent it needs to implement AI? Yes, no. That'll just give us a sense of where we're at. We got 200 people registered for this event, and we've got a bunch online already, so we should have some good results. Okay, first question. How important is it for companies to adopt generative AI? If they don't, is this an existential mistake? Eric, I'm going to start with you.
Wow. How important is it? It's incredibly important to think about what talent is going to be important for the future, obviously. Not thinking about AI strategy at all is a tremendous mistake. Absolutely. People have to be thinking through what that AI strategy is. Where I start to, question things, and we can talk more about this, is when we just jump to hiring for execution and execution only, and just trying to cram as much as we can into a system to keep up, as opposed to thinking really strategically about what it is we're hiring for, what purpose we want to aim towards, and how we're going to accomplish that with the right set of talent. So absolutely existential for companies not to do it, but thinking through how to do it is going to be the key.
Nicole, I know you have a hot take. You want to jump in?
So I also agree that it's essential for companies to adopt Gen AI. I think the bottom line is if you're not doing it, your competitors are. And so it's really important to get on it. There are two lanes that you can really go about adopting it. One is the operational efficiency side, and the other is bringing it into your product and building your product around it. I think on the operational efficiency side, diving in right away is really helpful just to start using it, start getting that gain from it, but also considering the strategy as well. So thinking high level and like, how are you going to go about this to bring it into your organization? Because it's kind of a tricky thing to bring to the whole team at once.
Halit, I'm guessing that AI compensation skyrocketing, but I'm guessing that compensation alone isn't enough to hire a talented AI specialist, particularly someone at the top of their game. They're not just profit seeking. So, what are the main challenges that you've seen from the companies that you're working with when they're trying to hire for AI roles?
Sure. I mean, compensation helps for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't have enough people, right? Enough experienced people. Like when you think about, for example, mobile developers, the way you hire is that you just don't want just a mobile developer who knows how to develop in mobile, right? You want someone who built and shipped mobile apps to production and dealt with the post-production issues and bugs, maintenance, scale, cost, cloud, infrastructure, everything, right? That's how you hire experienced people. So when you look at AI, especially generative AI, we simply don't have that many people in the market who basically already built and shipped products and productionized them, scaled them, dealt with the cost, and built the cloud infrastructure and everything. So that's been the biggest challenge we have been seeing in the market so far.
Yeah, 64% of the people who voted said they do not have the talent they need to implement AI. So I'm glad we got the table set here. Nicole, we had a prep call last week, and you said something interesting about companies not having necessarily the confidence to get started with building AI. What does it take to get that confidence?
I think nowadays it is so accessible that companies should feel confident in moving forward and developing that strategy. I do see companies bringing in someone that's seen it in other places in the market that allows them to then have the confidence to be like, we know others are doing it this way, and so we can go forward doing it this way. But I think there are a lot of resources, tooling, like everyone's talking about it. So I think getting out there and just having the conversations, that should give you enough confidence to proceed and go forward.
Anyone want to add to that? Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's exactly what Nicole was saying is exactly right, but at the same time, there's pieces that I think that when anybody is hit with a new stage of innovation, the first thing that they do is panic and freak out until we get to a stage of adaptation, and to some extent, it's perfectly normal for people to feel like they're freaking out a little bit still. So, it's not always about confidence as it is about just our normal trajectory with dealing with innovation as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
go ahead, Halit.
Yeah, I'll just add onto that. I think it also it goes back to experience, as Nicole said. Like, it is easier for someone who already built let's say a call center optimization and for a few times, and then have been working on the AI solutions for call centers for several years. It's kind of easier for that person to think about that process and how that project should be run and all those things. But if a bank CEO or a CTO or a retail CTO who have never done that and never thought about that, and they're like doing this first time, that as that lack of experience usually leads to a lack of confidence and problems with decision making, how to operate those projects.
What do you guys think about the difference between bringing in sort of an AI officer versus asking your CTO to handle these initiatives?
I'm very biased here, maybe.
Say
So
again. Say again, Nicole.
I was going to say, I think the most important thing is that someone is, or someone strategizing on it, someone is kind of taking responsibility. I think that can be the CTO, and then I think you can bring in someone externally, and it's completely kind of business use case dependent. Businesses are all sorts of sizes, all sorts of products, and so I think it's dependent on all those things, but someone at the leadership level must be responsible for it.
Nicole, at the companies you've worked for, has there been one that you saw that had like an AI talent pipeline that was like really robust and like that they just were basically turning down AI talent?
No. So what I've seen work the most effectively at companies is they're leveraging their talent they already have. And so they're able to level up, full stack engineers, senior engineers, staff engineers that have touched on some of this stuff, but maybe may not be an expert in it. And if they are bringing in external AI talent, they're bringing in 1 to 2 experts max. No one's bringing in like a team of 10 AI engineers that I've seen. And so it's really about just like up leveling your talent as quick as possible. And to everyone else's point, like this hasn't been like it's been around for a long time. The tech's been around for a long time, but in terms of the ubiquity of it and how people are talking about it, the accessibility, that's relatively new. And so it's kind of new skills that people are developing.
Yeah, I think like bringing people to build is like just get things going and like strategizing and then and executing and building things is usually really helpful, especially for the companies that I work with. Like once we do the projects with them, I think the impact to their internal knowledge and talent bases has been huge, because it's one approach is to try to learn it yourself and try to do it yourself, but once you have some experts guiding you, or like expert CTOs or even engineers who have done this before, when you have those people running those projects or running inside those projects with other people, it's just the spread of knowledge has been very tremendous.
So if we had to ask the high level question, what's it going to take to win the AI talent war? Maybe we can just go around and say, I'll start with you, Eric. Like, what companies are going to come out in front next year, next 5 years?
First, let's get away from calling it a talent war. I think we've got enough violence in the world right now. It's a talent opportunity, not a talent war. It's not that everybody can win here. So there's not going to be too many losers, I hope. I think the one, it's hard to point to specific companies that are going to do it. I think the ones that are going to be ones that take a longer term rather than a shorter term executional only view. So people that are going to be hopping on the bandwagon of what's important right now as of October 25th, 2023, and hiring just for today are going to be mired in the issues of today. And we know that AI is going to move much more quickly in terms of technological prowess and innovation than any other technology before. So people need to be thinking about hiring for the future. And I think part of that involves hiring profiles that aren't immediately apparent today. So everybody's talking about, and this is no disrespect to all the technical engineering that has to go in to do this, but we also need to be thinking about profiles that don't look like the typical engineering profiles, people that come from the arts, people that come from social science, people that don't fit the typical profiles of technologists. Those are going to be the companies that win, not the companies that are just looking at technical innovation right now as of October of 2023.
That's a really interesting take. Does anyone want to respond to that, Nicole? Halit, sorry, I saw you start talking.
Nicole, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go quickly. I think that's really insightful and thoughtful. I was going to add to it and just say, I think the companies that focus on what their consumers want, what product they're building, and making sure that how they're integrating AI into it is for the future and for the customer. I think it's a mistake to just throw AI in for the sake of throwing AI in. I think it's important that there's value add at the end of the day. And so, making sure that you have talent that understands that and not just the technical side is crucially important.
Yeah, I agree 100%, especially what Eric said about like talents or like kind of intersecting AI with other fields. When I work with enterprises, what like the first thing we usually do is like we go to function by function and look at different departments, like talk with marketing and sales and HR and all of those, and see like what can we do and what would be the business impact of bringing in AI. And first thing I usually hear is they just want their engineers, right? They want AI engineers in their functions, and but it's not just an engineer. They want someone who has experience in marketing, in doing AI for the marketing department, or they want someone who has experience in sales, doing AI in the sales function. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like one trend I'm also seeing is that these not tech-forward companies, like maybe an old-school insurance company or an old-school like healthcare back office company, now they're like thinking about AI, and obviously they want people who like kind of can craft their skills to their domains, and work with like an automotive company, right? Like someone who understands that domain and things like that. So I think I'm really hopeful. Like yes, there is some sort of crunch at the moment, but I'm really hopeful this AI talent will disperse into these different domains who are historically not very innovative, and then lift those domains up for the general wealth of the world.
And this is really like the sort of core decision point, right? That early on in your adoption life cycle, it's between sort of internal efficiency, right, and then actually doing AI products, or being AI led, which is sort of further down the road. How do you guys think about which companies that you've worked with have sort of figured that out and have like a good roadmap for that question?
I mean, I can start just, I remember when I started as the head of the brand for Spotify back in 2015, we launched Discover Weekly, which is how do you deliver personalized playlists to millions of people all at once, so it feels like unique and just to you. So when you're talking about using AI to solve for personalization, it's hard not to look at streaming companies and to say that for better or for worse, they've done a really good job of getting our number and figuring out exactly what it is that we want and delivering personalization in that way. So, I mean, that these tech companies have done a great job of integrating AI early on and are going to continue to ramp up their AI efforts in the future.
I want to bring in a question from the audience. Raymond Hunter asks, what strategies can companies utilize to not be driven by FOMO, yet appear to remain competitive in the marketplace? I think this is a big question. Don't be on the bandwagon here, but you still want to be involved. Halit?
I would say.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah,
Nicole's got it.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would say that the most important thing is still focusing on your product and what you're building and your business, and then just figuring out how Gen AI can make that so much better. And so it's a very powerful technology, but really focusing on your own use case and what's going to help your customers the most long term will make sure that you're not like falling into the FOMO. It's not Gen AI for the sake of Gen AI. It's Gen AI because that's going to be such a better product or experience for your customers, or it makes your team that much more efficient.
I mean, it might be a hot take, but I definitely think, yeah, companies should like strive for long-term FOMO. Yeah, it's not a great thing, but I think also there is a lot of value by just building, right? So yeah, I mean, there is there is value in strategizing for the long term and figuring those out, and then like just taking things slowly. But there's also a lot of value just building, and that, like, if you like are intentional about it, like we're building this, it may not be the best thing that we're building, but we are building this to gain the knowledge, educate our talent, know how to build, like learn by this process, and then we will strategize maybe for the long term. I think that's also a reasonable approach. I mean, the amount of knowledge we gain by just building prototypes or like initial launches or incremental launches has been really, really well. And then that usually leads to much better decision making after that. So I'm
That's
an
a really
engineer, so
interesting.
I might be on the side of
I have a totally different take on it, though. I get worried when people start building without first having a point of view. I mean, how not to have FOMO is to have a point of view of what role you want AI to play in your business. You can just start to build and then have a bunch of unintended consequences of what you've built. So I think, to not be driven by FOMO is don't be a follower, but be a leader in terms of having a point of view of what you want to get out of this technology to benefit people, your customers, your employees, maybe if you're even more ambitious, the planet. But, the FOMO happens when you start to follow instead of lead with that point of view.
I actually sit in the middle of those two. I think you have to build quickly. So I kind of agree on the building quickly. I do think it's important to dive in, learn the tech, because as you're learning, as it's iterating, like if you understand the whole evolution of it, that's going to help you down the line as well. But then, Eric, to your point, I think you have to build to deliver value. So if you can build in a way that's incremental, that gets that value to your customers as soon as possible. So like in 2-week cycles, that's going to get you, I think, the best of what the two of you are talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Go ahead, Halit.
Yeah, I think one point is that like because of the lack of experience, there is this lack of ability to estimate the costs, right? So I think that plays a big factor in strategizing, because if you don't know how long or how costly something to build, it makes it really difficult, right? Maybe you have a vision or opinion that's the thing that you want to do, but it's just like simply infeasible, or it's going to be too long. So like if you don't have the people who like whether it's your CTO or engineering team who cannot give you those confident estimations, then it makes it really hard to strategize in my point of view. So I think building quickly and doing some iterations, and again, like obviously you shouldn't build anything that doesn't have any business value. And that's where actually we are focusing to how to deliver business value with Gen AI, right? But I think just building process itself is extremely influential to like doing better strategies.
There's an interesting question here from Willie Williams in the audience, which is sort of separate from this debate, which is like, all right, let's say you want to implement AI, but you want to do it via like purchasing tools that can help you sort of with operational efficiency without necessarily hiring a bunch of engineers. Do you guys know any of tools for introducing AI to the company that have worked, that you've seen actually work for operational efficiency?
I have a hot take on this one, that just ChatGPT, GPT-4 through the OpenAI UX is the best operational efficiency tool you'll find on the market. I think people need to figure out their use cases for it, but from coding to marketing to generating images now with the DALL-E integration, it's pretty insane what it can do for $20 a month or whatever they charge.
I mean, yeah, when we say tools, maybe we can also take it like, is there applications and there are like development tools, right? I agree with what Nicole said. On top of that, obviously the open source technologies, right? Like Hugging Face and Llama Index and LangChains and all of those has been quite useful for engineering teams to build, and the open source ecosystem has been really, really great for generative AI. But in terms of real applications, I think we are still lacking behind. There are a lot of startups out there. Like if you look at the sales vertical, there's a bunch of sales applications. If you look at marketing, there are a bunch of marketing. There's like call center, a bunch of call center startups. There's a lot of, like the the confidence in enterprises, lacking confidence right now in enterprises to buy those softwares because they're not mature yet. And there's like that dilemma at the moment, like should we start building? But if we start building in 3 months from now, if someone like comes up with an actual product, what are we gonna do? Like is this like this throwaway work? So yeah, that's totally a real dilemma and problem right now.
The best thing I've seen with companies that I've been working with is to do internal employee crowdsourcing for what tools are people using in their personal lives and creating shared resources internally for people to spend an hour a week experimenting with these things. I think that that's where the fear goes away, is when you start to play with ChatGPT 4 and DALI and Claude AI and all of these other things that keep popping up. Is get people to create lists internally of what they're using in their personal lives, because you can those things can often lead to operational efficiency in business without us really realizing it, because we're sitting there trying to cheat on our homework instead, or whatever we're trying to do with these tools in our personal lives. But let's not create such a division between the usefulness in business and the usefulness in our personal lives with these things.
That's a beautiful way to wrap up this section. So I'm going to bring up another poll, which is, what's the hardest part of hiring AI talent? Your options: cost, scarcity of skill set, constant change in technology, retention, attracting top talent. And while we have that up, I'm gonna come back to Eric with a question that sort of reorients this conversation around top AI and ML builders. Like what do the most talented people who are building AI, what are they looking for? So in the last year and a half, 400,000 tech employees have been laid off. Our research at A.Team indicates that many knowledge workers now view full-time work with disillusionment and have gravitated towards this more like freelance style employment. 62% of knowledge workers said they don't feel secure committing to one employer anymore, which is kind of shocking. So what's happening here? How do you see the future of work changing right before our eyes?
Well, thanks for teeing up such a small, tiny question for us. Because this is a huge thing, and it's not really unrelated to what we've gone through over from 2020 to 2023 in terms of what we experienced, where anybody in knowledge work got a little bit more of a taste of what it wasn't like to go 9 to 5 in Monday through Friday in a workspace. And it seems like the only people that are still very much clinging on to that are people that own real estate or employers. Very few employees want to say, I would love to show up from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. It's not that they don't want to go back to an office. They just don't want to be told when and where to go back to an office. So, there's this bit about flexibility. I think the other thing that people have learned through these tech layoffs is there is no stability. People used to cling to full-time jobs because of security, but they've actually made us more insecure because now we're freaked out about getting laid off instead of making sure that these are places that are going to take care of us. So I think a lot of people have said, well, I get to work with the people I want to work with, doing the things I'm most passionate about. I'm not going to be trapped in a 9 to 5 box all the time, going to the same place. So it's no surprise to me that we're seeing knowledge workers take some keys from the gig economy and move into a direction that provides more flexibility for their lives. It's something I want to see more of, and I think it's the future of work.
Nicole, you went from a full-time role to being sort of your own boss and doing things in a more fractional way. What helped you along that path, or what led you to that?
I had kind of wanted to do it for a while for me personally, and then the timing for me, I left my company a year ago in October, and so it's been a year that I've been kind of consulting and running my own company on this side of it, and it's just been an incredible experience. I think the timing for me with the AI boom in particular, the release of everything has timed up perfectly from when I left. Like December, I started coding with it, got really popular. March, everything took off, and that's really when my business took off as well. And so I've kind of just had very fortunate timing in it, but obviously love the flexibility, love working for myself. I think it's just game changing in terms of what you can do. And AI has been able to make me so much more productive in that, which is pretty incredible as well.
Halit, I'm not sure how you describe your career path, but you went from being in-house to being a sort of a founder. So
It's
similar
pretty similar
vibes
to
for you?
Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Nicole's path. I started my business earlier this year, and definitely, I mean, I've been in the area of AI for a long time, but as Nicole said, it's just the recent developments definitely helped with the business. Um, I still keep in touch with a lot of big tech employees, like my previous reports or colleagues. Um, there is also, I think, one angle which, I mean, lifestyle is a big thing, but I think the other angle is just people just want to build and move fast. I think they want to see the results faster. Like a lot of these companies, even like very tech forward companies, don't want to name names, but there are a lot of bureaucracy, slowdown, hierarchy, and all those things. So I think people just like, I know some people who got laid off and was happy about it. They're just like, great. So I've been struggling with this decision for a while, and now it's just I don't have to make this decision kind of thing. So yeah, I think a lot of people really enjoy working, like when they start working uh, part time or in a smaller environment, just the fun of building and getting results faster. I think that's one purpose of freelancing and part time as well on the buyer side too. Like the reason you want to do that is because you probably want to go a little bit faster and see the results faster. So it seems like working both ways.
So to follow up on that, Halit, like when you're evaluating a project, now that you pick, the things that you work on, what are you looking for? Like what kind of projects, what kind of companies, how much infrastructure do they need to have already around AI before you even consider joining?
Yeah, my thing, like my company is a bit different. We build products as well, so not just like part-time work. Uh, we try to go like kind of like work with customers who we can scale our product offerings, so that like once we work with some customer, that we can take the same uh, infrastructure and maybe sell it to a different customer in the same domain or a different domain. So we try to kind of go a little bit like take the opportunities if we believe that there's an opportunity to scale. I mean, that can go for partial roles as well. Like if you're working with someone and if, like in some cases, like each work you're going to get some experience, right? And in some cases that experience is not going to be that useful in other places, and in some cases it will be. So I think it's a similar idea. Like we're mostly looking for experiences and projects that will help us build other like leads and monetization in the future, like more quickly, basically. Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm going to bring up a question from the audience here. Julian Ortega asks, what advice do you have for a non-technical startup founder looking to rent engineers necessary to build an AI native MVP?
I mean, this is just the opportunity. This is kind of teed up, Julian, directly to what I think fractional networks like the A.Team are so amazing at, right? Not to be self-serving at all. There's no skin in the game here, but it's a matter of, really looking towards fractional talent to start to rent those engineers until you figure out whether or not that's something that you want to make a full-time investment on, and whether or not that's something that you really want to invest on once you're past the MVP stage. But to do this, to really think about how you can partner with fractional talent to get there, seems to be the best thing that I've seen in the way that I've advised my clients to do it.
I echo that. I advise
yeah,
people to go through A.Team and get builders through A.Team, and find people that can get started on it right away and build quickly and adjust from there. Bring in full-time talent if you need on top of it.
There's sort of like a follow-up in the chat, which is from Anurag, which says one area where I've seen companies struggle is the roadmap for AI hiring. Should I first hire a data scientist or a data engineer or some other role? Obviously, this is context specific, but what's your guys' sort of thinking on that question? Was that too broad?
It is. I think definitely depends on. I mean, I helped with a bunch of companies to do that, and it's just like different each time. Yeah, there's some places that we prefer data scientists, and some places that we absolutely have no need for a data scientist, right? So, I mean, there's definitely value especially if you're hiring. I think like full time, there's definitely value going with more generalists who has some expertise in the domain. I know it's hard to find those kind of people who are like generalists, also like have some expertise in your domain. But I feel like really depends on the product and the value and business impact that you're trying to get.
I guess I totally agree with that, but I guess while it's a really good question, I think it's sort of the second question. And the first question is, what problem are you trying to solve? Because it's impossible to answer that question without knowing what problem you're trying to solve. If you're trying to really build a strategic roadmap to say, how does AI fit into our entire data strategy plan, and how do we figure out where we fill in our tech stack based off of that, that's a different question than who do we need to hire to build a product very, very quickly. Those are going to be two very, very different kind of profiles. So first identify what problem or problems you're trying to solve, and then look for the profiles that match to solve that problem.
I like the answers. A little bit of it's a little sobering to start thinking about these things because the questions are so big. And but so my empathy towards founders charging into this territory. Let's take this opportunity though to talk about fractional talent and your guys' experience in it. Eric, I want to start with you. Sort of, what do you like about the fractional talent model? Why does it work for talent? Why does it work for companies? What are the downsides? And then what are the pros?
I'm a huge fan of the fractional talent model. And I was, even when I was in the full-time side of hiring fractional talent. And part of the reason is that you can get the absolute best, most passionate people doing the work that's most important to you and most important to your organization. And you don't have to worry about hiring somebody full time that may or may not have that exact skill set that you need. They might have an adjacency that's important, but you truly get the best talent and with the most passion behind doing that work quickly and well. So that's what I really love about both being a fractional talent person and then hiring fractional talent when I've been in house. The downside is obviously can be around consistency, right? I mean, and that can just happen as a nature of having somebody that is in the organization but not in the organization in the way that a full-time employee is. So if you're not having somebody that's going to be fully invested in the completely asynchronous conversations that happen on Slack and all of the other things that happen, it can be hard to make sure that onboarding for a fractional talent officer of some kind is as smooth as it could be. So really putting the parameters around how you use that fractional talent is really important. But I think that the benefits far outweigh the cons to fractional hiring.
Halit, do you want to jump in?
I can just give it like I 100% agree. Can give a more like concrete example on the engineering side. Like I mentioned mobile developers before, but like if you're hiring a mobile developer, like, and if you know what you're building, let's say you want to build a consumer app that you want to scale to 10 million users, and you want to have it on iOS, Android, and you want to have it on web, and like if you know all of those things, then you can just like constrain your what you're looking for a lot, and you can say that, okay, I'm looking for these kind of skill sets, and I want a React Native engineer who did this a couple times, who shipped some consumer products in the past and scaled them to a couple million. You can add all of these constraints and then go hire that person, and however long you need. So I think that's a big benefit of hiring fractional. And then we see a lot of old school companies struggling with the current, like especially with AI, struggling with their existing talent because maybe they've been using, I don't know, Java for 20 years, and now everything is happening in Python, and like you have that skill gap, and all of those. So it's yeah, I've seen great value hiring partial engineers.
The World Economic Forum predicts a 39% increase in job creation for AI ML specialists in the next 4 years. Nicole, I'm curious, what kind of companies will sort of the top tier of specialists flock to, and then what percentage of that do you think will be fractional versus in-house?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think engineers and kind of technical talent always flock towards hard, interesting problems. And that really does become the most important thing. I think compensation is obviously going to come into play, but the compensation for this level of talent will likely, be high, stay high, maybe go a little higher. And then ultimately it's going to come down to what kind of problems are they solving and where does a specific engineer's interests and passions align that kind of line up with that problem. I think it'll be a mix of fractional and kind of full-time talent. I think there are benefits and trade-offs to both. I think on the engineering side specifically, when you're fractional, it's really hard to get down into the nitty-gritty of a problem the same way as when you're full-time, just because it can be more all-consuming. Like you want to think about it more to actually solve it, get into the nitty-gritty of the details. And so my guess is it'll kind of be more of an even split, but there'll be a lot more fractional talent maybe at the higher levels, even kind of like management leadership style with the strategy and things that when you see it across multiple companies, it's actually really helpful to have that insight versus maybe engineers actually working on the problems will stay kind of full time, get really embedded in a problem.
To follow up on that, just do you feel like enterprise companies need a full in-house chief AI officer kind of thing, or is a fractional AI officer also an option there?
I don't know what the world's going to look like even, 6 months, a year from now. I think,
What?
right. I don't have that crystal ball. I wish I did. Could make a lot of money off of that. But I do think, that will just be the CTO role the same way for sure. All those things kind of fall under that CTO role. That's going to be a responsibility of the CTO. And then whether that's outsourced to a separate role or not, some companies do have separate security people, separate kind of cloud people, depending in the future, if that makes sense.
I think your last bit broke up for me. I don't know if anyone else saw that. Will you say that last bit, Nicole?
I was just saying, I think it's very business case dependent on whether that role will exist in the future. So the same way a company might have like a chief security officer, like some companies will need a chief AI officer, and some companies, the AI will just fall under the CTO role.
That makes sense. Eric, do you have a take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slightly different point of view just because I worry a little bit that everybody, I don't know if everybody in my world's read the latest Tech Optimist Manifesto by Mark Andreessen, and I just take a lot of issue with the fact that like there's been a lot of pushback in the technical communities about not thinking through people that are thinking through AI ethics and risk and all of these other things that are involved. And I really worry when we put all the emphasis on chief technology officers as opposed to different profiles that could be also weighing in on the AI conversation, we lead to a fact we just lead to a myopic worldview and a worldview that doesn't take into account what could potentially happen down the road from actions that we take today. So, I guess I'm a little concerned if we just put AI in the CTO's camp, because a lot of CTOs know far less about AI than I do as somebody that sat as a marketer. So I just don't agree that those people are necessarily the best to be making all the decisions around this for everyone.
That's a really interesting question, and to bring in one of the questions from Joe, who's my boss at A.Team. Which is basically like, how do we get a diversity of opinions and perspectives in the room when building with AI? I think it's a really interesting question. I'm sure you guys all have a little bit of a take on this. Halit, do you want to?
Yeah. So I'll go the engineering route again. I think what I've seen working well with the companies I work with is these small hackathons and building sessions where different departments, different teams build their own prototypes and demonstrate their use cases in their domains. And in some cases, it's typical like chatbot format. In some cases, totally different, but somehow utilize AI. And then these kind of like seeing things working. Maybe they're not working great, but it's things up and running and some visuals. It's been tremendously helpful for decision making and getting the attention of like kind of C-levels, especially in these large corporations where you have like tens of thousands of employees. It's a bit hard to get everyone's opinion otherwise. But when you divide things into small teams and everyone try to do their best in what they build and then bubble those up higher up in the chain has been quite impactful from my experience.
Nicole, I know there's definitely a gender gap in the AI world, especially on the builder side. How do you think about these issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's always been more of a gender gap in engineering and technical talent in general. I think that the talent is there though, and the talent, even though broadly, like you might see a gender gap like between everyone, I actually think as you tighten the pool to more top talent, there isn't even as much of a gender gap. You just have to find people and have a strong network with it and make sure. My philosophy with gender gap and hiring is if you actually raise the bar, so to speak, that people use when hiring, you're going to have better numbers on the gender gap, because when people have, diverse groups of people that have worked really hard to get to the top, they're typically very good at their job. And so you can have top talent that's incredibly diverse. You just have to put in the work, networking, meeting people to find that talent and bring them in. And I think it's incredibly important too, to have different viewpoints and different backgrounds kind of working on these sorts of problems, very much to Eric's point.
It's really interesting, right? Because we think, we think back only across the last 10 years or so, but the field of technology, especially in places like Silicon Valley, have been alive and well for quite a while. And in the early days of like Xerox, Park Xerox, and all these other companies, they used to hire people with philosophy backgrounds. They used to hire people with anthropology backgrounds. They used to hire sociologists and psychologists to weigh in on these conversations, as if people with those training don't have anything useful to add to the conversation now. And I think we've just over pivoted to this premium on the only people that know about technology are people that code. And I firmly disagree that is where the talent is going to come from for the future when it comes to solving the world's biggest problems.
Mm. How do we measure that ROI, I guess, both in terms of the impact of our AI products and also the sort of ROI of our talent acquisition? This is a question that May asked in the Q&A. How do you guys think about looking at the ROI for all these initiatives?
Has there ever been a good way of measuring the ROI of talent acquisition? I mean, I don't know if this is any different than measuring the ROI of any hire, of whether or not they provide value to the company and value to other people within the company. Those people that don't get fired and go somewhere else, and the people that do get promoted to the point of incompetence. So, I mean, I'm not exactly sure that this ROI question is any different than the ROI of any other talent.
Mm. So maybe I'll use this next one to tee up some slides I want to show from. So we put together this playbook. It's called the Fractional Talent Playbook, and there should be a tab that you can access it. If not, we'll follow up with an email tomorrow so everyone in the audience can download. But it's basically fractional talent for dummies, like a sort of basic guidebook for how to use companies like A.Team, but it's not just about A.Team. It's really about how do you bring in expertise from outside your org and plug it in. And the main answer is basically just like treat them like a full-time employee. But there's a great question here from Ben Rapp, which is, what if the business does not yet have a vision/plan on how to incorporate AI? Who can help identify areas where AI could add value? And I think this goes to one of Nicole's points or I think it was Nicole from our prep call, which is that execution is actually not even necessarily the most complex part of this question. Strategy is really the sticky, tough question. So how do you guys think about that when people don't yet have a vision for what to build with AI?
I feel like that's what Eric do, but
I was going to say, I'm for
Yeah.
hire. Anybody's no, please, Nicole. I do think that you had some great points on this. If you want to chime in, I don't want to take your thunder here.
Yeah, I was just gonna, Eric, you definitely do it, and my company does it as well. It's really about bringing, leadership together, figuring out what problems you need to solve, and then kind of taking on the plan of attack from there. I think the two lanes of operational efficiency, then how are you going to build it into your product, are incredibly important. And then as you go down those two routes, having a rollout plan, operational efficiency, looking at the whole org, thinking about culture is incredibly important. This isn't stuff that you can just bring to the team and be like, okay, all of a sudden now you're expected to do your job 5 times as fast. Like, it's a cultural rollout as well, and communicating the strategy to the organization. And then on the product AI architecture side, there are a lot of choices that need to be made just in terms of like, what kind of product do you want to build? What data do you want to use? What models do you want to use? Do you want to be able to plug and play? All sorts of questions have to be answered. It's not something that has to take a long time. I think it's an exercise that can be done within a matter of a week, but the intention behind it is incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Nicole's point, the biggest thing there is real commitment from leadership to invest in developing that vision and strategy. And there's lots of people that can help do it, but it doesn't work without the commitment of leadership in an organization to say that that's important to do. So that's where I'd really push. And if you're not a leader, find a way to demand that of your leaders. And if you are a leader, try to get your other peers on board to build that vision before you start running off and building without having a clear roadmap of what you're building and why.
Halit, any last thoughts to jump in?
I agree with both.
Well, maybe I'll have Brad bring up just a slide real quick, because this was a beautiful conversation. And just to wrap up, I wanted to flesh out this idea, which is that the context in which fractional hiring has emerged, right? It comes at a time when the dream of the cushy, big tech job has somewhat evaporated. Highly skilled product builders want more autonomy, more independence. And companies are looking for efficiency, trying to keep their budgets level going forward. And at the same time, you have this massively disruptive new technology that requires everyone to move quickly and build. So that's sort of like these three major factors in our macro environment leading to the rise of fractional hiring. We put together a flow chart to help companies evaluate if your organization needs fractional talent. It's probably a little hard to read on the screen this size, but pretty much, if you don't have the AI expertise that you need, the traditional hiring process can take 3 months or more. It can get expensive. With fractional hiring, you source niche expertise and jumpstart initiatives that you haven't started or that aren't moving as quickly as you'd like. So there's a little bit of a flow chart here, depending on what stage your organization is at and what you want to build, and then what kind of fractional talent you want to bring in, whether it's someone to talk big picture strategy, figure out what to build, or whether it's more on the sort of like, I know I'm ready to go, I just need to effectively staff augmentation, but sort of with more like plugging in directly to your core team. There's another use case which someone mentioned in the chat, which is what if you're a non-technical founder and you need to spin up a prototype? You can build an entire tech team with fractional talent. If you guys are interested in learning more, you can download the Fractional Talent Playbook. I put it in the chat. It's also in a tab, and we'll follow up. You basically can't escape at this point. It's a great resource if you're considering finding a talent partner to bring in AI expertise. And it has info on how to successfully plug in fractional talent, the gist of which is basically treat them like full-time employees, onboard them, hold stand-ups with them, invite them to your Christmas, your holiday parties. We're about at time. Thank you so much to our panelists. You guys were awesome. I like the little back and forth. And thank you to the audience for joining us. Tune in November 30th, ChatGPT's birthday. We've got a big event in New York and virtual. It's our AI and Future of Work Summit, featuring multiple keynote speakers, including Keith Sonderling from the Biden administration, who's looking closely at these issues. Thanks so much, everyone. Stay safe out there. And I really appreciate you all being here today.
Thank you.